You have found what lights you up. I'm your host, Sunny the Life Coach, and I'm here because I see you searching for something or someone out there to help you feel better. Something to take away the pain that you're feeling, the inadequacies. I know all of the things that happen in life can leave you feeling empty. Your search is over. This podcast is all about finding your own freedom and power to love yourself enough to shine in the ways you were always meant to, the ways in which you are already fully capable of. If you're ready for some real talk, some serious truth bombs, and a few F-bombs, you are in the right place. Let's do this. Let's get lit. Hey, welcome to episode 10. Well, so much has changed in 1 week, and I'm finding myself reflecting on a lot of things that I'll likely get into on this episode. I'm going to share some thoughts with you today on a very weighty topic, which you can probably surmise from the title. I don't feel qualified. It scares the hell out of me, but I will not ignore what's going on and follow up an episode about pandemic anxiety without addressing my position on George Floyd and the events that have unfolded as a result of this tragedy. Yes, I'm including my opinions here. It's necessary. I had a moment last Friday. I was in my feelings, my raw feelings, not feeling fantastic, but trying to find the bright spots in my surroundings. Because my friends, gratitude is so very healing, along with love. And we'll get to that in a bit. I was walking around the nature trails and just thinking of trying to find 3 good things. And I doubled it. I was feeling uplifted, better already, a bit lighter. There was, of course, the sunshine and also a gentle breeze. I saw 2 people doing Tai Chi by the water. I saw another person a few yards away meditating. I saw an open playground with children playing and laughing. I haven't seen that since March. I saw the new outdoor gym equipment close to being complete. For weeks, I've been trying to guess what that concrete pad was for. I saw a part of the trail that's prone to flooding and has had an unpaved section of walkway for that reason since last spring. But now the walkway was finished. I saw many freshly planted trees along that newer part of the trail, the tag still on, swaying in the breeze. And I saw my friend, Roy Lee. And he's an elderly black man who I normally count on seeing almost daily. He's fun. He's a real bright spot. He definitely makes my list of good things when I run into him. I know his name because I stopped and chatted with him one day. I thanked him for always being so upbeat. He says, exercise, exercise, as I walk by. Sometimes he even adds, not every time, sometimes he adds, my sister. And I know he used to be a boxer, and that's why he makes the gestures he does with his arms, kind of shadow boxing. He was riding his bike that day, so I'm seeing all these good things, more than 3. I don't even remember how many I mentioned, maybe 7 or 8, right? I kind of perked up waiting to make eye contact and wave, but he did not look in my direction. He rode right past, taking in the scenes around him with a troubled look on his face, and then gone. That's when I looked around and I took everything in again. Everyone around me was white. And Roy Lee didn't look like he wanted any of it that day. I started having a lot of thoughts about my privilege, all of the things I just listed, all of the access I have, the color of my skin. It didn't feel good anymore to celebrate, and I felt so conflicted. I want to acknowledge my full awareness of my privilege before I dig further into this topic. I want to listen and be open to further learning while knowing it's my job to educate myself. Roy Lee is not my one black friend that I happen to know casually. I have many lasting friendships out there, so please don't come at me over the mention. I brought him up because seeing him in that moment in time absolutely changed my perspective of the moment I was having. Before seeing his face, the expression, and the way that he was looking around, I realized I don't ever have to take in my surroundings like that. It was a powerful shift and a deeply uncomfortable one. Like, even talking about this today is uncomfortable, but I'm here for it. I'm willing to be with my discomfort. I'm willing to fumble and fail and fuck it up and get it wrong and be called out for it. I probably won't get it perfect, but I am committed to keep trying until I do. I believe that's what the black community is asking of us white people right now. So yes, I'm here for all of it. And to be crystal clear, I am speaking to my fellow white people today. It is not my intent to educate black people. I am nowhere near qualified to do that. So I ask those of you who are not white who may be listening to understand the perspective that I'm coming from. I'm not here to talk about white guilt or anything like that because it's ridiculous and not at all helpful. I think the most any of us white people can do right now is to be open and willing to learn all day, every day. Our country is in a serious state of unrest. The entire national conversation, with acknowledgement that the world is watching too, has shifted from COVID to racial inequality and injustice. Very heavy topics. Very raw and visceral emotions are coming to the surface of the collective conscious, and they cannot be ignored, nor should they be ignored. I have said before, you need to feel in order to heal. That hasn't changed. It's no great mystery why this is happening now. We are a society pushed to the breaking point. The fallout of the pandemic has unemployment high and the fear is peaking. We were already frayed, already exhausted, already desperate. During a recent interview about little fires everywhere, Brene Brown was referring to the tension building in the book and the subsequent series, and she said, Brene said about it, the fragility of it, it's going to take one single spark to set this whole thing ablaze. When I heard her say that, I thought, wow, that's it. That's exactly it. That's what I've thought too. Only I've been thinking about it in terms of watching real life unfold. Side note, if you haven't watched that series, I think it's a Hulu original. It's very good. Definitely challenging because you find yourself very invested in the two main characters played by Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington. And you find yourself wishing you could slap them both. Each episode. It's like there's no protagonist-antagonist relationship there. They're just two very deeply flawed humans. It's very compelling and a fine means of escape if you want to get away from the news for just a bit. Just throwing that in there. One of the things I have reflected on is a few things that I said last week. Let's start there, because if you listen to those episodes in the context of current events, you may question my thought process. First, I talked about the neutrality of death, that death is a circumstance that is completely neutral because the emotions surrounding the death do not exist until you have a thought about it, until you know that it has happened, and that you can always find what's neutral because everyone agrees that it happened. yet there are very different experiences around it. So let's put that into context of the death of George Floyd. Everyone agrees that it happened. We all witnessed it. And so many emotions are coming with the thoughts around this event. Now, certainly I don't know what everyone else is thinking. I know what they're saying. I definitely see the gamut of emotions being expressed: sadness, outrage, horror, disbelief, despair. All of these feelings generated from a singular event. For some on the surface, for others, it's piled on to the depths of historical oppression, and it's become too much to bear. This is the model, or the movie, playing out in a collective manner throughout our society that cannot be ignored. George Floyd's death is the circumstance. I know it's hard to view it that way because the emotion comes up immediately. Bear with me. Saying his death is a circumstance is in no way meant to diminish what happened, but simply to look at it from that place of neutrality before the thoughts and all of the feelings come into play, because thoughts and feelings are ultimately what sets everything into motion. People are taking action based on their feelings, and then we arrive at the results of those actions. We're all having a different experience. And just like that, the new debate is not whether to wear a mask or not in public. The debate is whether or not rioting is an acceptable response to injustice. It's the same argument, though. It's the same judgment. They are doing it wrong. This is the right way to protest. It's that stake in the ground based on the values we have constructed over time, our thoughts and our beliefs. That hasn't changed. I hope you can see that with full acknowledgement that it may be different to see right away. Just try. It's the same argument, just a different scene in your movie. Judgment. This is right because I believe it to be so, and this is what aligns with my values and my beliefs. That is wrong. They are doing it wrong. I'm not saying that for myself. I'm simply saying that is what is happening on the one side. On the flip side, there are thoughts from the Black community like, we are exhausted. We are sick of being killed because of our skin color. We have tried peaceful protest and were criticized for that too. All of the thoughts, all of the raw and visceral emotions that follow. Another thing that I said last week was to consider that most people are just doing the best they can. I also know that may be a huge stretch to apply to, say, Derek Chauvin or the other officers involved. I know that it may be a huge stretch to apply it to the protesters that are breaking shit and burning buildings. I get it. But still, that hasn't changed. It's what we do when we feel these things. That's where our results come from, not what someone else does to us, how we respond. So now our stakes are in the ground, and you're either with Black people or you're with the police. And by the way, if you're with Black people, by default, you condone any violence or destruction of property. Oh man, I mean, those are some impossible choices we are giving ourselves, aren't they? It feels so heavy and so draining when we make it mean us and them. I have friends who are police also. I love and support them too. This doesn't have to be all or nothing. Part of the acceptance of life being half great and half awful, knowing that balance, is also acknowledging that there will always be injustices in the world. There will always be wars. There will be riots in the streets. Trying to change the world to mold it into your concept of utopia is never going to happen. Because guess what? Your concept of utopia is not going to match everyone else's. And also because it's an impossible task. Think about it. Change the world? Rainbows and sunshine? Everyone holding hands and singing all the time? Good luck with that. If you want to replace those feelings of hopelessness and powerlessness, you have to start with yourself. Start with your own thoughts to generate the feelings that propel you forward. You know what feels most amazing? Unconditional love. Love without condition means that someone else doesn't have to behave a certain way for you to love them. They don't have to believe what you believe. They don't have to think the same thoughts as you. They don't have to agree with you. They simply exist and you simply love them. Think about your children if you have them, or your beloved pets. You love them unconditionally, right? Now, that doesn't mean that you don't get angry with them at times or feel disappointed in their choices at times. Maybe they shit on your carpet at times. I've seen that happen with both kids and pets, so it works for me. That's enough to make you feel angry and disappointed for sure, but you don't stop loving them. With any relationship, that's going to happen. Negative emotions because of your thoughts about what they do. But as long as you keep moving the needle toward love, the fear and hate lose power. As Martin Luther King said, hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. It's true. I guarantee if you start to challenge your thoughts from a place of curiosity and compassion, you open yourself up to a greater understanding, and then you are positioned to be the change you want to see in the world. It starts within. For some reason, it seems easier, though, to challenge others. Why is that? You don't have that kind of power to control all the people. So why not start with yourself? Here's a thought to try on. I've seen a Martin Luther King meme circulated that shows a picture of him walking in peaceful protest, linking arms with his fellow protesters. It said something along the lines of, never burned one building, never robbed one store, never destroyed one town, changed the world. I saw that meme circulated several times over the weekend. Gosh, what's your first thought of that image? Is that true? Ask yourself. Challenge your thoughts about that. Because on the surface it seems true. It could be true. Is it true that none of his followers ever did anything? Everyone was peaceful all the time? Is it also true that he was assassinated? If he changed the world, why are we having this current experience? You see why I say that changing the world is an impossible task, right? There is no doubt this man worked tirelessly to make a positive impact, to chip away at the mountain of racial inequity. It was his life's work. Now, it's likely true that meme boils down to someone's beliefs. It boils down their beliefs in a few sentences. What are beliefs? Thoughts that you think over and over. When was the last time you challenged your beliefs on something? Anything? When was the last time you read an article or book with an opposing viewpoint? I'm not talking about a social media post. Hell, there is tons of opposition out there for sure. I'm talking about an actual book or something similar that you may not agree with, but that you can at least ask yourself to unlock your mind to an alternative concept. See, when we are young, we are open to learning new things. As we grow older and our values have been shaped by our families, our own life experiences, societal structures, we close ourselves off to the idea of learning new things. We know all we need to know. The stake is in the ground. We surround ourselves with like-minded people as much as possible, and we succumb to confirmation bias. We only seek further confirmation of our own beliefs. This is simply how your mind works, so be careful not to make it mean anything about you for seeking confirmation. It's what brains do. We don't challenge ourselves to try on new thoughts. In college, I had an open mind, and somewhere, at least I want to believe that I did, and somewhere along the way, I shut it down. I locked my beliefs securely in place, and I didn't open back up until recent years through my coaching practice. Probably before then, but it gets more and more unlocked as I work through this. And let me remind you, it is constant practice. I had a geography professor challenge me in college. We had to write some topic about Native American culture because, geography is not just about places on the map, after all. It turned out to be my favorite class ever. I had no idea what to write about. I don't know history, what they wore, how they lived. And he suggested spirituality. And I thought, ugh, I totally don't want to do this. But I shrugged and I said, fine, let's see what I can come up with. And up to this point in my life, I had only been exposed to Christianity, and even then, not so much in depth. I never really latched onto it. It wasn't inspiring to me. I expected Native American spirituality to be similar, so while I kept my mind open to possibilities, I really wasn't hoping for much. And wow, was I ever wrong. I specifically honed in on the Lakota tribe. I learned that they refer to the creator as Wankantaka, the Great Spirit. I learned that they revered everything in nature, that they would perform ceremonies to honor the animals they killed for food and clothing, and especially that women were seen as very powerful beings to be honored. That was refreshing. One of the sources even said that the men would take the woman's name upon marriage. And I thought, what? Most fascinating of all to me is that they would not proselytize to others. They never tried to convince others to believe what they believed. It was a way of life that was completely counter to everything I had ever seen or been exposed to. Amazing. My professor handed me my paper apologizing for not making any notes. He caught me in the hallway before class, but he said that he didn't want to make a mark on it. It was the most beautiful thing he'd ever read. And I was touched, okay? This was a long time ago. But Wakantanka is what I titled it, the Great Spirit. Now, imagine I went into this with no understanding whatsoever, challenged myself, educated myself, and turned out one of the best pieces of writing he'd ever seen. And when he told me this, his eyes were all misty. I'm not kidding. He said it invoked all kinds of emotion when he read it because I'd been inspired by my findings. I'm saying that I was inspired. If it invoked emotion in him, if my writing was that good, it was because it came from a place of inspiration. It was truly beautiful to learn. Or maybe all of my other classmates were just really shitty writers. Who knows? It was just a worthy experience to have. The point here is I had a new thought after that experience. Maybe not all spirituality is the same. Maybe the context I've had around spirituality doesn't fit everything the same. Maybe it's not just about buildings and ancient texts and hymns. Maybe it's also about trees and the plants and the animals and honoring those things in the highest regard. All life. A complete alternate reality than what I had previously known. So, how can you first challenge your own thoughts from a place of compassion and non-judgment. You've got to practice. As with anything new, you're going to stumble at first, like learning to walk. You're going to have to build those muscles. You're going to fall on your face a few times until you do. Try and try again. Now, I'm not saying challenge everything. You may have some beliefs that you are perfectly fine with having. Perhaps you believe, and I hope you do if you're listening to this podcast and see where I'm going. Perhaps you believe that racism is abhorrent and that's not something you're willing to let go of. Fantastic. But you don't need my approval or anyone else's to forge ahead with your beliefs. Just have awareness. When you have values that are not harmful to yourself or others, you get to keep them. You can actually keep them all. It's completely your choice. What I'm saying is that your experience with life will improve greatly if you open yourself to exploring the shit that's dragging you down. You may have thoughts that riots are bad, destruction of property is bad. That's fine too, but challenge yourself. Have you ever participated in a couch burning and glass breaking when your favorite basketball team won the championship? Oh, but that's different, you say. Destroying businesses that are barely hanging on during a pandemic is different than what I did in 1996 when I was in college. Okay. Seriously, you get to keep any of your values or beliefs that you want to. As long as you like your reason, cool. Own it. I don't tell you what to believe, nor does anyone else. Just keep in mind that sitting in judgment of others and having thoughts of their doing it wrong is only keeping you angry, keeping you stuck. It doesn't keep the glass from breaking or the fires from burning. I want to be clear that I'm not condoning violent protest. I'm also not in a place to know what pain is driving that reaction. I hope that I never do know it. If you are willing to say that not all cops are bad cops, yet you are willing to label all protesters as destructive, we should try on the willingness to challenge those thoughts, to start questioning why we think the thoughts that we do, and again, from a place of simply curiosity, non-judgment, and compassion. I can tell you why, in fact, you have those thoughts. It's a lifetime of social conditioning. It's simply that. It doesn't mean you're a bad person or that you have bad intentions. Listen, change is painful. Real, meaningful change on a societal level is messy, it's ugly. Revolutions are not about joining hands and singing. They sometimes look like riots in the streets. This country was not born of peaceful protest, taking knees and holding signs. If the history books are an accurate portrayal, they broke some glass, destroyed some property, and set a few fires. People died. Just keeping it real. What is also painful, on a much different level, of course, on a much different level, is speaking up and speaking out as a white ally for Black Lives Matter. Because we are so fucking afraid of getting it wrong, of offending, of our words having unintended consequences. What we need to always keep in mind is that we can't please all of the people all of the time. It is impossible. Remember, everyone is living their own movie. Someone is always going to have thoughts about something you say. I mean, here's a fun example. I commented on a friend's post a couple of days ago that was about why aren't all businesses open. I took an opportunity to point out the difference between thoughts and feelings. I don't know. I thought it would be a fun exercise. After a little back and forth, it spiraled into just stay in your house, put your mask on, and lock yourself in your closet. I mean, seriously, I'm like, what? How did you get that out of these words? I mean, and I think the thing that I said that sparked that response was, we can sit in judgment with all of our shoulds, but ultimately the only power we have is our own thoughts. I mean, I get it. It's too much for a Facebook post, but still. It was hilarious. The response to that was just stay in your house, put your mask on, and lock yourself in your closet. I'm like, what the fuck does that even have to do with what I said? So you don't know how other people are going to react. I don't know how other people are going to react to this podcast. You may love it, you may hate it, and there's nothing in between. And okay, and I know I can't make everyone happy, but uncomfortable, awkward, and or terrifying is what we need to be willing to feel. We need to be willing to feel all of those on our anti-racism journey if that's where we are headed. That's where I'm going. I'm going there. And I want you to know that unconditional love starts within. If you want to heal the pain that you're carrying, you have to start moving the needle in that direction, in the direction of love. And unconditional love does not mean that you love every single human without condition. Although if you want to, that's amazing, and this world cannot have too much love in it. You may want some conditions attached to the love you give. You may say, once you murder someone, I'm out. But try to work through any hate you may be holding on to. Where this most comes into play right now, honestly, is within your family and closest circle of friends. There will be disagreements about where your support should go during this time of unrest. There will be opinions about whether or not participating in a peaceful demonstration means that you don't support law enforcement. You're either on this side or that one. Unfortunately, that is simply the mindset of the collective within this country right now. It's one side or the other, pick a side. Yet this is so very complex. Just as our humanity is complex, it's not about trying to be right, prove your point is right, being on the right side of history, and all of those seemingly important and altruistic things. Let your family and friends say what they need to say, smile, and say, I hear you, I love you, this is what I'm going to do. That's what unconditional love is. The ability to love someone even when you disagree with them. The ability to let go of your need to prove that your viewpoint is the right one and just love them anyway. For all of the other reasons that you love them. Don't allow this moment to damage your relationships. Again, we need all of the love that we can possibly put out into this world right now. I saw Roy Lee again a couple of days later, and he was his chipper self. I even got a my sister, out of him. Yes, it felt better to see that. No, I am not relying on Roy Lee's behavior or anyone else's to feel good. That, my friends, is called codependency, and I've spent a lot of time working myself out of that hole, I can assure you. I am now aware and beyond grateful to realize that the only thing responsible for my feelings are my thoughts. That doesn't mean that I don't feel conflicted some days. I find myself simultaneously angry, confused, and still a little grateful. And it's a weird space to be in, but I'm here for it. I fully recognize my privilege. I'm willing to keep learning, growing, and making mistakes along my journey. I have learned a few things already over the years regarding the anti-racism approach, and I'll share them with my fellow white people now so that you can simply know. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of awareness here. Right now, everything is Black Lives Matter, period, full stop, end of discussion. Even LGBTQ community is dedicating Pride Month to this color. That's it. That's the only color that matters right now because that's the house that's on fire. Never say all lives matter. You may love all humans like I do, but saying all lives matter diminishes the current struggle of this people in particular. Trust me. Please don't do it. I made that mistake years ago. Do not say, I don't see color. I also made that mistake years ago. And for the very same reason. The very same reason that you don't say all lives matter, you don't say I don't see color. While it sounds fluffy and lovely, it is also a huge misstep. People of color want to know that you see them. You acknowledge and recognize that you have privileges they do not. See them. Also, see what is happening in our country right now. I did not want to watch George Floyd's murder played over and over, but I forced myself to. I said to myself, I cannot look away from this. I must see this for exactly what it is. My eyes are open, and so is my heart. Seeing is hard for us white people, but we need to start doing some hard things. We don't get to sit with our privilege and turn away. Oh, and now is not the time for white people to share Martin Luther King quotes on social media. I'm still exploring why that's a problem, but I suspect it has to do with the one that I mentioned earlier. If everyone would just be peaceful like that lovely guy we murdered, all would be well. Oh, this has gone long. Let's have a Rumi quote and wrap this up. Rumi, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in one drop. Our Black friends are asking for our voices to support them right now in any way that we can. If it feels overwhelming, it probably should. Where to start? There are tons of resources out there. They are not asking us to change the world. They know the world is cruel and unjust. Just be that drop and know that you are the entire ocean. Every ounce of love that you put out there matters. Start within. I love you all. Thank you for listening. Shine on.